was really big on providing in that way. He talked about another young lady trying to get there, and he promised to be the world there for her, but then she ended up not wanting to go there. So he no longer works for the university. So I'd have to reach out to somebody else on that end, but uh, certainly can try.
Okay, we'll be grateful for that.
Yes, sir. Well, let's go ahead now, transition for now into our study. We are looking at Proverbs, the 23rd chapter, Proverbs 23. And if you're able to read and want to read, go ahead and unmute your device. We'll see about an order in which we can do some reading here. I'm looking right now at Leland, Wilson, Ronnie, Keith, Rick, Jason, and Jesse. That's seven of us here in that order to read 35 verses. So that would put us right at five apiece. So if we want to go in that order that I just called out, read five verses apiece, or read Proverbs 23. We'll go Leland, Wilson, Ronnie, Keith, Rick, Jason, and Jesse. And we'll read five verses apiece, and then we'll discuss what our reading was about. Take it away there for us, Leland.
Okay.
Leland.
Chapter 23, starting in verse 1. When you sit down to eat with a ruler, consider carefully what is before you, and put a knife to your throat if you are a man given to appetite. Do not desire his delicacies, for they are deceptive food. Do not overwork to be rich, because of your own understanding, cease. Will you set your eyes on that which is not? For riches certainly make themselves wings. They fly away like an eagle toward heaven.
Do not eat the bread of a miser, nor desire his delicacies. For as he thinks in his heart, so is he. Eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you. The morsel you have eaten will fill up and waste your present words. Do not speak in the hearing of a fool, for he will despise the wisdom of your words. Do not remove the ancient landmark, nor enter the fields of the fatherless. For their no, okay.
For their Redeemer is mighty. He will plead their cause against you. Apply your heart to instruction, and your ears to words of knowledge. Do not withhold correction from a child. For if you beat him, he will beat him with a rod. He will not die. You shall beat him with a rod and deliver his soul from hell. My son, if your heart is wise, my heart will rejoice. Indeed, I myself.
Yes, my inmost being will rejoice when your lips speak right things. Do not let your heart envy sinners, but be zealous for the fear of the Lord all the day. For surely there is a hereafter, and your hope will not be cut off. Hear, my son, and be wise, and guide your heart in the way. Do not mix with wine bibbers or with gluttonous eaters of meat.
For the drunkard and the glutton will come to poverty, and drowsiness will clothe a man with rags. Listen to your father who begot you, and do not despise your mother when she is old. Buy the truth and do not sell it, also wisdom and instruction and understanding. The father of the righteous will greatly rejoice, and he who begets a wise child will delight in him. Let your father and your mother be glad, and let her who bore you rejoice.
My son, give me your heart, and let your eyes observe my ways. For a prostitute is a deep pit, an adulteress is a narrow well. She lies in wait like a robber, and increases the traitors among mankind. Who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has strife? Who has complaining? Who has wounds without cause? Who has redness of eyes? Those who tarry long over wine, those who go to try mixed wine.
Do not look on the wine when it is red, when it sparkles in the cup, when it swirls around smoothly. At the last tick, it bites like a beans, and your heart will utter perverse deeds. Yes, or like one who lies at the top of the mast, saying, "They have struck me, but I was not hurt. They have beaten me, but I did not feel it. When shall I awake that I may seek another drink?"
All right. Thank you there, brother. Thank you, all of you. Looking at chapter 23, it seems like there's different things going on here, but some of it seems to also fit together. So, like looking at verses 1 through 3, and then comparing that with verses 4 and 5, they almost seem like they don't really connect. But then you get to verses 6 through 8, and it seems like maybe there is some connection to help us with some interpretation there. But then you go through some of the rest of this chapter, and it just seems to be to the young. Here's some great advice in dealing with different aspects of life. So verses 1 through 3 talks about when you sit down to eat with a ruler, carefully consider what's set before you. Put a knife to your throat if you're a man given to appetite. Do not desire his delicacies, for they are deceptive food. And then it talks about not overworking to be rich and all of that. We'll come back to verses 4 and 5. But then verses 6 and 7 say, "Do not eat the bread of a miser, nor desire his delicacies. For as he thinks in his heart, so is he. Eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you. The morsel you have eaten, you will vomit up and waste your pleasant words." Could it be, that gets you guys just thinking on this, could it be that, we may not have opportunity to sit down with the president or anything like that, but someone who's a wealthy individual, someone who has, they're in a position of influence. They set before us delicacies. They set before us a meal. It says to not just be so quick, I think, here to engage in this meal. Don't be so quick to indulge in what's set before you. Do you think that there might be something to be said for the fact that if you engage in a meal with an individual who his heart is not right with the Lord, he's a miser, that it may be presenting an opportunity for you to be entrapped with an individual whose heart is not right, to where now you're in fellowship, you're enjoining fellowship with someone who may have something to hold over you, and now you owe them something. Being cautious about who you spend your time with and who you align yourself with maybe is something to be thinking about there. What do you guys think about that? What do you think about that in relation to, or even just in general, verses 4 and 5?
Well, it almost seems like you kind of hinted at, that 1 through 8 may all go together, because you're looking at delicacies, which requires wealth, and then in 4 it enters the idea of overworking to be rich and basically lusting after money, and how in all of this you'll fall short with those who have not earned it in honest ways and don't have right things set before their mind. They have evil in their heart, and it really just seems like they all go together. Like, this is a way of explaining, like you just alluded to, the idea of who you associate with.
Yeah, I think that's definitely worthy of consideration there. Absolutely. Instead of jumping from one topic over another to another and then right back to the same one, I think that makes better sense. Wilson, what about you? You had your hand up.
Yeah, I when I look at these passages, I see a case scenario whereby we have those people who have not made their heart right with the Lord, and we go even to their houses. We must leave a gap. We must let them understand that we are not completely the same. so that we may have an opportunity to probably tell them, even if they ask, what is the difference? What do we think is the difference? If we go freely with them, they will think that we are just like them, and we will not have any opportunity to try and change them.
And that would certainly be an application from the principle here. Yes, sir. So how does that relate to maybe when you get into verse 9 and so forth? What do you think about verse 9? Does that bring to mind anything else that you might have read somewhere in Scripture? Do not speak in the hearing of a fool, for he will despise the wisdom of your words. Doesn't Jesus say something like that? Like, don't not casting your pearl before swine.
Yes.
So you can seek to speak wisdom in the hearing of fools, but if the fool here, I think, would be the person who's not going to be listening to godly wisdom, the one who would cast it off or even speak against wisdom. Despise the wisdom of your words. Do not speak in the hearing of a fool. You're wasting your breath. What about verses 9, 10 and 11? This was something that, if you look back in chapter 22, verse 28, it says, chapter 22, verse 28, it says, do not remove the ancient landmark which your fathers have set. That's something that you can read about in the law, the book of Deuteronomy. But in chapter 23, it says, do not remove the ancient landmark, nor enter the fields of the fatherless. Almost like don't even encroach into the other fields that you have no business being in. And it speaks of the fatherless. Seems like in the Word of God, there's a lot said about the fatherless, the orphans, the widow, that God really does pay special attention to them, providing care and concern for them. And about encroaching the fields of the fatherless, what does it say, verse 11?
Their Redeemer is strong, and he will plead their cause against you.
It's interesting. In my translation, I've got the word Redeemer there is capitalized. So who do you think that at least the interpreters of this Bible, who do you think that they're talking about with Redeemer?
Jehovah.
That's right. What would that say about doing what's right in a general sense and being held accountable for your thoughts and your actions and dealing with your fellow man?
Well, if you go to Hebrews chapter 4, verse 13, talks about the word being quick, being living and active, that it'll judge even the motivations of our heart. It's not just those things that we do, that we commit, it's those things that we think about even that can be a problem, those things which we say. One of the things that I'm taking away and just very, very big picture from this chapter is not allowing yourself to be in any sort of precarious situation, but it really just goes to not being beholden or dependent on anyone, and also not taking advantage of those who are less fortunate. Talking about going into the fields of the fatherless. This is an accusation that is levied against Israel throughout the prophets, that their people, their priests, they were not giving justice to the orphans, to the fatherless, to the sick, to those who had a cause, but were turning away that justice to bribes.
I appreciate that. And I'll just add to it as well. Verse 4, it says, do not overwork to be rich because of your own understanding. Cease. And looking at that bigger picture and thinking about how God judges the hearts and the minds. I think sometimes we can look within ourselves and realize that not in of ourselves can we really grasp or attain anything. It's only by the blessing of God that we're going to find that true blessing that we're after. And it does help. It does help here in Old Testament passages like this. It helps us to think about the depth of spirituality that exists and just even the realms of men, and that God is he's watching and he's taking note, and he does act in the affairs of men here in this physical world. So look at verses 12 and 13, 14 and 15 and 16. We'll move this along a little bit. It says, apply your heart to instruction, your ears to the words of knowledge. And it says verses 13 and 14 to do not do what, but rather what?
Don't withhold. I mean, don't withhold correction. He won't die. This is Tristan's favorite verse in the Bible, 13 and 14.
Is that his favorite when you talk to him about it or when you administer it?
Administering it. Yeah, he's a big fan.
Yeah.
Well, you think about that. Following up with the heart of wisdom, apply your heart and your ears to wisdom and to knowledge, and then talking about discipline here. Children need to be encouraged, and they certainly need to be nurtured, but there's also the aspect of godly discipline. And we might use terms like corporal punishment. This might be seen in different ways. Like, I don't know, Leland, how you were disciplined growing up. You hear sometimes people talk about a switch. Somebody, my daddy told me to go get a switch off the tree, and someone else may get a spanking with the bare hand, or someone else may get the belt. Someone might administer the belt. We're talking here about discipline that is, we call it corporal punishment or whatever you want to call it, but it can find its way in various forms in various cultures. And we're talking here with some folks from Kenya. It'd be interesting to hear how that might go over and where you're at. But one thing before I open it up for discussion, we're not talking about is child abuse. We're not talking about venting the parent's emotions and anger onto the child. And we're talking about physical discipline that is to be administered. And that's something that we do see in the Proverbs. I don't believe that this is if you beat him with a rod, he will not die. I do not believe that is just a symbolic use of language there, as much as it is referring to a form of corporal punishment. And then it's followed up there, verses 5 and 6. My son, if your heart is wise, my heart will rejoice. Indeed, I myself, yes, my inmost being will rejoice when your lips speak right things. There are other proverbs that talk about folly being, bound in the heart of a child. It needs to be corrected. Any thoughts on that? I could go on, but I want to provide opportunity for others to speak.
Well,
Travis,
like you mentioned here in
did I
Kenya,
see your hand go up, or was that just?
No, I'll wait for Wilson. Go ahead, Wilson.
like you said, here in Kenya, we don't actually spare the Lord. I was looking aloud because there is this switch. Maybe you may have seen it in my house when you were over here. I don't keep it far because of Kaylan. You remember my grandson, because sometimes you tell him to do this and he want to delay, he wants some excuse. Most of the time we don't use the cane or the switch, because when he sees it there, he remembers how it stings, and it does the work even without using it. Because when it is there, it is to remind them what will happen if they don't follow the instructions.
That's good. If you're true with using it, that the threat of it being used really does help the child to not act out. And I think that carries with us into adulthood. They talk about the fear of God, even as Christians, to know what He's capable of and to understand that He will act. Like we were looking at verse 11, the Redeemer is mighty. He will plead their cause against you, whether that's in the hereafter or whether it's here in our lives on earth. To know that the Lord will will act and He will discipline, uh, and to know that He will actually follow through, instills a proper reverence for Him. And as a father, we're all, I see men here, but we've got Lisa on here as a parent. It just to be one who's consistent and who's going to follow through with discipline, it will pay dividends for the child in exercising wisdom later on in life. I appreciate that. Um, there's verses 16 and 17 here, speaking of not envying sinners, but rather be zealous for the fear of the Lord all the day. For surely there is a hereafter, and your hope will not be cut off. Um, not all of the rewards and not all of the chastenings are taking place in the present moment, but there is a future that we ought to be looking forward to in faith. And as a parent, we ought to be instilling that within the hearts of our children. If we do that, then as they get older, look at verses 19 through 21. What will they be about? Verses 19 through 21.
Well, it seems to be like one of those things where, like Paul talks about in Hebrews 12:1 about being conformed to this world. This idea of envying sinners, that is wanting to conform to the world because you are looking at what they have and the things that they've gotten. They don't live right, but you like what they have, and that molding in you a desire that maybe would put your the decisions that you would make at question. What you would maybe give on some things where you normally wouldn't because you're looking at the things that they have and they do. And I think that goes right into the idea of the drinkers and those who go above and beyond on the food and all of the just as a category of excess. That would be just things that you want to really push away from when it's so easy to look at the things that people have and want to do that. It is something that we have to constantly fight. And I relate that back to the children. They're going to want what the other friends at school have. And trying to instill these principles, the correct principles in them early, maybe you will have that child who, at the end of the day, will make their mother and father proud, that they have resisted and they have, instead of conformed, they've been transformed.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's good. Very good. Absolutely. Listen to your father, verse 22, who begot you, and do not despise your mother when she is old. Buy the truth and do not sell it. Also, wisdom and instruction and understanding. That's a very familiar passage, verse 23, but sandwiched in it there, as Rick was alluding to, with the instruction of the parents. It seems to be that it's reflecting that, the wisdom the godly wisdom that is given from the parent to the child and then lived out. It should be honored. It should be treasured. Um, we would certainly delight. Verse 24, I certainly delight when my children walk in truth. Uh, Carrie is certainly proud in a good way. Proud in a good way, if we can say that, when our children do well. And that's ultimately what we're aiming for with the training and instruction of our children. And children that said need to be taught to heed. They're going to be parents have a responsibility to teach, to train, instruct, and discipline. The children have a responsibility to listen and heed and obey, and they'll be held accountable for how they listen, heed, and obey, just as much as the parent will be held accountable for teaching, instructing, and disciplining. Um, we've got some verses here, verses 26, 27, and 28. More said about the harlot and the seductress lying in wait. Certainly, all people, young and old, need to be aware of the dangers that can come about by uh, letting our eyes wander, opening up our ears to things we ought not be listening to, and opening up our heart to things that we ought not be allowing in. So we've got eyes, ears, heart talked about in this chapter. Um, and the dangers here that talk about that are associated with the seductress. And then verses 29 through 35. Uh, if you start there with verse 29, it's like a riddle here, like who, who, who. There's six questions here. Who has woe, sorrow, contentions, complaints, wounds without cause, redness of eyes? Well, it tells us in the passages that follow. And what's the point here? What's being talked about? Verses 30 through 35. Somebody help me out.
Talking about a drunkard who's intoxicated and continually desiring it. It reminds me of the ones who can't sleep without causing others to sin, or spoken of earlier. And just that constant state of having to be involved in that. And I think this is a great passage, obviously, to teach about drunkenness, but also teaches us about anything in excess that we give ourselves over to. Paul says, all things are profitable, but I will not be mastered by anything. And so just having that this completely undisciplined life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point about anything with excess. You look back there at verse 20, and you do have wine bibbers and gluttonous eaters. And Rick pointed out the excess there. If you're constantly full, it's easy to be more tired and have less vigor. I think Wilson, when last time we were over there, he was talking about having a hunger, that motivates you. There's a little bit of grit that comes along with the proper hunger. And that said, this is certainly one of the strongest passages in the Proverbs, I think, that speak against drunkenness. And there's a lot that we could say about it. The one who will linger long at the wine, who go in search of mixed wine. Looking at some different helps for our discussion today. There are those who have stated, Travis has to leave. Good to see you on here today, Travis. You take care. We'll see you tonight. Um, uh, People would mix spices and things in their wine. There are those who like the taste of wine. There are those who think that wine is an elegant thing to continually drink upon. But the idea of it swirling around smoothly and all of that, uh, looking upon the wine when it's red, that doesn't mean that you can drink white wine if it's intoxicating. But when it sparkles in the cup and swirls around smoothly, the idea is just continually having it in your hand, continually looking at it and finding enticement with it. and certainly for those who know about drunkenness, you know that it has an enticing value to it. It's a passing pleasure. It will bring that about. But at the last, it bites like a serpent, stings like a viper. Your eyes may see strange things. In the Hebrew, the original word there, strange things, is translated over in 22:14 as the immoral woman, depending on where you find it. The NIV there speaks to the immoral woman. Your eyes will see strange things. Immoral women, lusts can be enticed through drunkenness. Your heart will utter pervert things. I think Travis mentioned earlier, it's not just about what we do and what we say, it's about what we think. God's concerned with our hearts and what we think. But your eyes will see strange things, your heart will utter perverse things. You shall be like one who lies down in the midst of the sea, or one who lies at the top of the mast. Some question about that in the original Hebrew, but I think the point is that you can get yourself in a situation that outwardly poses danger, but inwardly you've got liquid courage, thinking that you can withstand anything. And then when you sober up, you'll be in a world of hurt, not knowing what's happened to you, but in that sense of being hurt and being confused about your surroundings. What has this individual said they're ready to do? Get right back after it and get intoxicated yet again. And there are people that live their lives like that never thought that they would get to that point. But you get to that point one step at a time. And it's a lot easier to stay away from that point of living than it is to get out of it. Keith?
I was just going to say addiction comes in a lot of different forms. Alcohol, drugs, power, money, food, whatever it is. And I think that's kind of where the first part of this chapter is leading. We got to remember that friendship with the world is enmity with God. And breaking bread with somebody is, in the world, it's a symbol of union with that person. And like Wilson said, we need to maintain a gap between ourselves and other people. So besides not being tempted by maintaining that gap, we also show the world that, yeah, it's there, but it has no power over me. And, if we're addicted to anything, it should be to the Word of God and to faithfulness. Like Stephanus, how he's mentioned by Paul, is being addicted to the, service to the saints. And that will give other people a good understanding of what Christianity is really supposed to be, as opposed to denying yourself this, that, and the other. You're kicking and screaming, you really want it, but you can't have it out of fear. It shows that there's another path that we can walk.
I appreciate those comments. Kind of helps compress a lot of the theme that runs throughout. You went back there to the first part of the chapter and talking about not being enticed. And then, I would just add this too, as parents, this is how we need to be. Our children need to see that this is what we're about. It's one thing to want to not have our children become drunkards, not have them go after strange women. We want them to be wise. But as parents, that's what we need to exemplify. That's what we need to be about ourselves. And our children, they at an early age, they can sense when there's stability and when there's consistency versus when there's not. And I can remember, and I'm sure you can too, if you go back in your mind just to your youth, you had a pretty solid perception of your surroundings in your teens. You may not have had all the wisdom in the world, but you were developing a sense of perception to your surroundings that were very acute, and you start forming your own opinions of things. And so we as parents need to really take that responsibility on properly with a sober mind. And that said, I'm gonna read what Jesse put here. He had typed in the chat window 2 Corinthians 6, 2 Corinthians 6, 14 through 16. It says, do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship has righteousness with lawlessness, and what communion has light with darkness? And what accord has Christ with Belial, or what part of a believer with an unbeliever? And what agreement has the temple of God with idols? For you are the temple of the living God, as God has said, I will dwell in them and walk among them. I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Lisa wrote in the chat window a while back that focus should be on gaining wisdom. And Keith said, if we're going to be addicted to anything, let's be addicted to God and His Word. So, all good thoughts today. I appreciate everybody's contributions. And is there anything else anybody would like to add? Yes, sir, Jason.
Just we went through the body's physical appetite, but we also have the spiritual appetite that Christ fulfills as being the bread of heaven, that which came down from heaven to satisfy those spiritual desires and nourishment that only He can fulfill. So it's a matter of cutting off and commanding the mortal body, but also filling up spiritually from that well that is Christ.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that. So great point. I know we all have that hunger. We all have that hunger deep down, and we can be filled. And sometimes maybe folks don't realize, how much they're starving spiritually. And then there are times in which maybe we can retrain our own satiability if we would just get after it, right? So I appreciate that. Well, guys, we're going to leave it there for now. Lord willing, we'll come back next time and we'll do chapter 24. I appreciate everybody getting on. I appreciate your contributions, and I hope y'all have a good rest of your day.
We'll see y'all.
Thank you.